Hello and welcome to the Watch Kaki channel, where we bring you all the good and honest watch reviews. In today's video, we are going to take a detailed look at this watch here that I unboxed 2 weeks ago. This is the SBEP005 Digital Tuna. Right? It is popularly known as the Digital Tuna or Digi Tuna, but I can assure you that, apart from that shell or shroud look, there is nothing tuna about this watch. Right? It doesn't have any Seiko Tuna DNA. In fact, it feels like any other digital watch, more like a G-Shock. In fact, Seiko has never claimed that this is a Pro Specs diver. It is not an ISO rated diver. This one here is designed in conjunction with the design firm Lowercase. I'm not too sure what kind of things they design, but I know that they're a Japanese company. So as spoken about in my unboxing video, I felt I had some mixed feelings when I unboxed this watch because it doesn't feel like a Seiko watch. Because whenever we think of Seiko divers, we always think of such watches. Alright, we think of divers, heavy, chunky divers with bracelets coming in at about 160, 170 grams, bright lume, and all that. But here we have something very different. In fact, I think this watch is a combination of two popular styles and two of the brands that I like very much. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So on my left hand here we have a G-Shock, a huge G-Shock. Right? This is the King, G-Shock King. I think they call it the King, GX56. And then over here I have the Seiko Solar Tuna, the black and gold version. And I think if you mishmash or if you combine these two watches together and throw in a bit of Sunto, a bit of Pro-Track into the mix, you get something like this. So I've just zoomed in a little bit more so that you can get a closer look of the SBEP005 Field Master. Now before I share with you my thoughts on the build quality and things like that, let's just run through some specifications. Now this watch here is big, really big. It's got a case diameter of 49.5 millimeters. That is the entire shroud, plastic shroud. It's got a case thickness of about 14.5 millimeters from the case back to the flat crystal. Crystal here is Hardlex. It does have a lug width of 22 millimeters, but bear in mind that this one doesn't take fat bars. Judging from the strap hole here or the lug hole, I think it takes regular size spring bars. So just bear in mind if you are thinking of changing straps on this one. The lug to lug distance is pretty similar to the case size or the shroud size. This one here comes in about 50 millimeters, but it wears really well because the case back or the mid case sort of has this aggressive sloping downward lug, so it's going to help in the wearability, which I'm going to show you later on in the reshot. Some more information not found on many websites, and this one here has got a huge display. The crystal size is about 33 millimeters, alright, and it's got really big digits for easy reading of time. The digits here are about 8 millimeters, alright, and that's very big compared to the usual G-Shock watches that come in at around 5 to 6 millimeters. So this watch here has a module. I think it's called a module because it's a digital watch. The module number is S802. This is a solar module, so it's powered by sunlight or light. Alright, there's a capacitor and gets charged and it powers up the watch, so you don't have to worry about replacing batteries, and that's the good thing about solar watches. But when the capacitor goes dead, then maybe you have to pay quite a bit of money to do a replacement. The Field Master here is also a very lightweight watch. I put it on the digital scale and it says it is just under 80 grams, 79 point something. So despite the huge size, because it is made with plastic, so this watch here is very light. At the time of this video review, this watch model here is still pretty accessible. It is available. I think you can typically get it from grey dealers or parallel importers for about 400 Singapore dollars. And now I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the case construction and build quality. So as you all know since the unboxing video, this one here has got a full plastic construction. the shroud, the mid case, or the lux, or this part here, the body, whatever you call this part, it is plastic. Okay, at first glance I thought this one is like some kind of a plated steel or aluminum, but I was wrong. In fact, the entire watch is plastic, save for the case back. And the case back here is not the typical screw-in type, it's in fact held down by 4 screws, and this really reminds me of Casio G-Shocks. And as a result, I think this watch, has gotten some bad reviews because of the materials used. Many fans are not very happy about having a Seiko diver or diver style made of plastic. Right? I'm pretty okay with it because I think there's a reason behind this design cue that is obviously to save weight, alright, for weight saving purpose. And the next point that most people are not too happy about this watch is the bezel. This bezel here I think is fully plastic. I don't believe there's an insert. I could be wrong, but the main problem about this watch is the bezel. Look, it doesn't click. It doesn't click. Alright, it is a friction bezel, so you just push it at will. It's bi-directional. You can do whatever you want. There is no backplay, so to speak. There is no misalignment. In fact, the alignment is perfect. Alright, because you can do whatever you want with it. I'm not too sure what's the design philosophy behind this bezel, why it doesn't click, why have Seiko used a bi-directional friction bezel, but I hope they have good reason for this, because many Seiko fans are very unhappy about this design. I wore this watch and I showed my friends. They were all quite shocked when they turned the bezel, no clicking, and they were just very shocked to find that this thing is on a Seiko watch. And now I'm going to touch on the design and display of this watch here, and you can see that the overall design is still very much trying to keep in line with the Seiko divers. It's got a dive markers, 1020 or whatever, and it's got a loom pip, and it is a real loom pip. Alright, and over here they've got this chapter ring. It is also printed, but it doesn't serve any purpose because there is no seconds hand or there are no minute hands here, but there is an LCD minute marker. Over here you can see, so the time here reads 3:31, and you can see that there are 31 demarcations here, 31. Alright, so this is a minute marker, not a second marker. And now I'm going to talk about the huge digits found on the display here. I love it. It's very good for easy reading of the watch. Most of the time for digital watches, you'll find that because the numbers are really small, you need to take a longer time to read the time. So over here, the digits are pretty big, 8 millimeters, and I think it sort of helps you to read the time easier. And what I like about this one is it's got a 2-liner display. There are 3 segments, but there's a 2-liner for the time. And by pressing the button here, I am able to toggle between home time and world time. So for the world time, I've set to Tokyo, which is GMT plus 9, as shown here. And if I press it again, it goes back to home time, which is Singapore, GMT plus 8. So if I'm not traveling, I can easily set this to, say, another time zone. Let's say if I go to Hong Kong is the same as Singapore, GMT plus 8. So if I go to Bangkok, I can use the Bangkok time zone, and I can easily toggle between Bangkok and Singapore time. So this is one thing I love about this watch. So since this is an LCD display, the Seiko logo, Prospex logo, and all these wordings here, 20 bar and dual time whatever mode, they're all printed on the crystal. And then we have that battery power indicator at the bottom, the 6 o'clock area. So for some reason, this watch never gets to full charge. It is always at the 2-bar status. Well, as long as the watch is working and all that, I don't see any reasons to complain about it. So overall, in terms of build quality and design, I think this one needs some time to get used to. If you're very familiar with Seiko divers, sumo, samurai, turtles, monsters, if you wear this watch, you'll be shocked because it is nothing like a Seiko. It feels very much like a G-Shock. But all these buttons here and the screws and shroud, they're still decent. The build quality is still decent, right? Materials used, I have mixed feelings, to be honest, but I think the build quality is pretty decent. Now I'm going to quickly run through with you the functions on this watch. As with digital watches, there's always, this capability to scroll through within a few functions. So it's quite the opposite from a G-Shock. Most G-Shocks, they have the mode button on the left. This one here is the opposite, it's on the right, mode. So this is the timekeeping mode, and I'm gonna go into the next one, which is stopwatch. So it's pretty much the same. Depress it for a start, blah blah blah, time your walk to the train station, time how long you need to cook your instant noodles, and then when you're done, reset. The next function is the recall. If I'm not wrong, this one here recalls the previous time you've used the stopwatch. In all honesty, I'm not going to use this function. And the next function here is the timer, maybe for you to set time and see how long you need to wait before your hair color is ready, or how long for you to boil the egg. And I must mention that during all these functions, you can read the time from the second display line here. So again, very handy. You can do your timing functions at the same time you know the actual time of the day. And the next function is alarm, which I will never use because I use my iPhone for waking up in the morning to go to work. And lastly, we have the solar function, which is an indicator of how well the watch is receiving charge. So over here it says 0 to, if I'm not wrong, this is the highest level that the watch is receiving charge. It does feel like it because I'm shooting this watch under my studio light, so I think as a result, this watch is receiving a very healthy amount of sunlight. So overall, the functions are pretty standard for a digital watch. I could see myself using this one in daily life. For example, I can use the stopwatch to time my runs. If I am free enough to go for a run, I can use this one to time my run, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and I think it's pretty useful. And now let's take a look at the wrist shot of the watch on my puny wrist. My wrist is 17 centimeters. You can see that despite the huge size of close to 50 millimeters case size, this watch actually wears very well, and it's all due to the curved lugs here. So it gives you this wrist hugging feel, so very little to no lug gaps here. And due to the lightness of the watch, this is all plastic, it remains very manageable. Alright, it's not a small watch, very tall, about 14.5 millimeters, very big, very long L to L, but remains very easy to wear. Wearability is not a problem at all. And I'm going to show you the illumination of this watch because it has to be operated with a tap on the glass display. So I'm going to off the lights first. So with the studio light switched off, you can see that the lume pip is already glowing, and this is the typical Seiko Lumi Bright. I'm going to tap on the screen, and you can see that the LED panel comes on. Alright, so it takes 1 or 2 firm taps for it to turn on, and I think it's only 2 seconds. So I wish it's a longer display time. So let's zoom out and do a quick size comparison between the SBEP005 and my Solar Tuna. This is the SNE498. So you can see at one glance, this is indeed a huge watch. The Tuna is no slouch, it's about 46 or 47 millimeters, but this one just makes it look like a midget. Alright, so it's a midget Tuna. And in terms of thickness, I would have to admit it's not a very good comparison, because this one here, the Solar Tuna, is known for being a very thin watch. We're looking at 12 millimeters for the Solar Tuna versus 14.5 millimeters for the Fieldmaster Digi Tuna. Overall, I would say this one here wins in terms of legibility, because of the hands configuration. At one glance you know the time. Over here you do need to spend some time to sort of read out the time. And just for the sake of doing so, we have the comparison between the King GX56 and the Fieldmaster here. You can see the Fieldmaster is definitely smaller compared to the G-Shock. This one here is ridiculously big, and for somebody so big, it's got very small numbers. I wonder what's the design philosophy behind this one. In terms of thickness, this one also gets trashed by the Casio G-Shock. This one here, the G-Shock is about 18 millimeters, 18, and this one is about 14.5. And there you have it. That was my review of the Seiko SBEP005 Fieldmaster, widely known as the Digi Tuna, because it's a digital watch and it looks like a Seiko Tuna. But I have to remind you, this is nothing like a Seiko Tuna, alright? You could argue that even my Solar Tuna, it is not a true blue tuna because it's got a plastic shroud, it's got an inferior movement compared to the 7C46 movement. So this one here, apart from plastic case, plastic shroud, the shroud looks like a tuna. Apart from that, nothing else is a tuna. It's basically just another digital watch. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's very different from the usual Seiko diver watches. So if you're thinking this is like a Seiko diver watch which has a digital watch face, then I think you could be surprised. If you found the video to be helpful, please come back here every week, subscribe to my channel. This is the Watch Kaki. I'm from Singapore, and my assistant, this guy here, his name is George. We're gonna say bye for now. Bye bye.